Hello, beloved hearts. Welcome back to my podcast in another episode. And I do have a very special guest here with us. And we're going to talk all about human design, the yin energy, divine feminine energy, and how that all plays a role in human design. So I would love to welcome our special guest here, Zsuzsi Evans, who is a spiritual teacher, a speaker, and soon to be an author. Her primary tool is for helping women decondition is human design. She is most passionate about helping to create a movement of powerful women through improving their relationship with themselves, each other, and their partners. So I would love to welcome you, Zsuzsi, to this episode. So
Thank you so much for having me, Monica. This is really special. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Well, thank you for being here as a guest and also sharing some of your wisdom and expertise when it comes to human design. I know just some bits and pieces of it. I just know that I'm a projector, but that's about it. So I haven't really studied in depth. Um, and we'll love to dive more into this in the episode. But first, I wanted to ask you what led you to get into human design and get into all of this?
I think that I could trace it back to birth, but um, to be more succinct, the exact journey was around my Saturn return, which I know that you are really into astrology and that potentially most of your listeners understand that the Saturn return is this big cycle shift for everybody. But according to human design, especially for yourself and myself, which we'll talk about a little later. So, my Saturn return was an extremely bumpy time, and you could say that I hit like a rock bottom of sorts. I was having a real existential crisis of conscience, a crisis of identity. It was just this perfect storm of everything kind of falling away in my life and me trying to hold on to it desperately. So I went on what initially was a personal development journey, starting to understand the voices in my head and all of the terrible things that they would say to me and anxiety and all of that stuff. And it very quickly snowballed into um, a, a recalibrating, which led me to working at this holistic wellness retreat in New York City, where everybody used to introduce themselves with their zodiac sign and their Enneagram and all of that stuff. And, it was around, I was kind of surrounded by it, but I wasn't super interested in any of it until um, one of my coworkers was talking to a man I thought was a customer, but it turned out that he was a human design practitioner who had done charts for everybody in the space before I started working there. And everything he was saying was super interesting.
Mhm.
He had my friend pegged. Like, she was actually also a projector, and he was saying all of these things to her that I could see because I was working side by side with her, but there was something about the way he was explaining it that just gave it a whole new perspective and language. And so when he left, I was like, what was that about? What is that guy talking about? And she said, "Oh, it's just human design."
It's just human design, which is nothing.
And so I just, I remembered that. I don't know why, but I didn't even Google it or anything like that. I was like, I need human design from that guy. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to mess with it. So the next time he came in, I jumped out of my seat and went over to him and asked him if he had a minute to tell me about the system. And he ended up giving me a reading right then and there,
Mhm.
without really planning to. And it just, when truth like hits you
Yeah.
and
Like a
your
truth
body just
bomb.
knows.
Yeah. It's almost like a truth
That's what,
bomb, right? Like,
yes,
yeah.
yes. It really just dropped into my body and I was mesmerized.
Mm-hmm.
He just explained like not just my life, but like human existence
Mm-hmm.
in a way that I just had never heard anybody explain it before. And, it's been 7 years since that initial reading, and I've gone on a much deeper spiritual dive since then. But what I actually started to understand fairly recently is the reason why that initial reading was so powerful is not because I was learning it for the first time. It was like a cellular remembering. It was like I knew this all along, but I had gotten so far off my path
Yeah.
that I had to be reminded that this is who I am
Mm-hmm.
and it is who I came here to be. And then it just kickstarted this whole relearning process, I will say, relearning process, because after he was finished giving me my
Okay.
initiation into the system, he had been looking at my chart, obviously, and he saw how our two charts interacted because there's a way to overlay two charts together to see how they communicate and how they connect. And he just said to me, I don't know if this makes any sense to you, but I think I've been looking for you for 10 years.
Oh,
Would you like to work with me? Would you like to help me
interesting.
um, create a company around human design? And it was just a full body yes.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I just needed to be around him and learn everything I possibly could from him.
Mm-hmm.
I even learned in that first reading that he was very close to the source of human design. A man named Ra Uruhu was the one who this information was placed into. We don't like to say that it was channeled because, like, you channel, right? You channel information, you channel wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And Ra had an experience in 1987, and it was a one-time deal.
Oh.
He had all of this knowledge placed into him over the course of 8 days, and then he wrote it down and started teaching it in
Mm.
1992.
So it's a kind of like equivalent to like Reiki, would you say? Like how the whole Reiki started and all that.
Actually, I don't.
Oh, it kind of sounds like it. I think that's how it kind of started. I kind of placed into them like him, like as the knowledge that he just received, in that moment to bring these like new energy work type teachings. And that's how like Reiki spread. Like
Mm.
people started getting certified and all these Reiki like courses, and stuff. So I don't know, it just kind of reminded me of the human design that you're describing right now.
Well, and truth be told, Ra received the design of everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we are most concerned with human design or
Mm-hmm.
the design of humans
Mm-hmm.
because we are um, always looking for tools to help
Mm-hmm.
us understand ourselves better
Yeah,
and to
exactly.
potentially suffer less in these incarnations because Earth can be a pretty
Yeah.
um,
Very challenging.
challenging, yes, that's the nicest way to put it. Earth can be a very challenging place, especially since we are in the middle of this huge global cycle shift.
Yes.
So one of the things that I started to understand from that first reading, which was, really not something that most people get from the beginning stages, but the fact that I got it right away was so valuable in understanding the bigger picture of why this information came through, which is that there when you're looking at a human design chart, when you're looking at this body graph, as we call it, you're looking at an imprintation from a moment, right? When we come through, when we come out,
Yeah.
so to speak, that's why your birth time is so important. We are imprinted
Mm-hmm.
with the frequencies that are on Earth at that moment. But there is a universal background frequency that we are all experiencing, and they come in these global cycles
Mm-hmm.
that are 400 years or so. And 2027, according to human design, represents a huge global cycle shift. So, astrology has been talking about the age of Aquarius. Various Mayan calendars have been predicting all sorts of different things. Well, according to human design, this kind of lines up with the age that we are in at this time and why you and I came to this planet to help,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
to assist humanity in ascending because that is what is needed at this time. That's what we need as a consciousness to be on a higher level in order to
Mm-hmm.
clear the way for what's coming. Because the cycle shift or the cycle that we're coming out of is very tribal, it's very um,
Separation.
regimented, it's very masculine. And what is coming is the age of the sleeping phoenix, is what we call it, which is
Oh,
rising from the ashes of what was.
yeah.
And we don't know what that's going to look like, but we can all see at this time how a lot of the old ways are falling away. All of the traditions, the
Mm-hmm.
institutions, the patterns of control and hierarchy are
Mm-hmm.
being
Mm-hmm.
um, dismantled. However, what is needed at this time for all of humanity is to be able to trust yourself, to be able to tune into your own intuitive gifts, whatever those may be, and know that you will always be able to figure it out. You're not here to try to outsource your decision making to anyone else. And the hierarchy falling away means that we are all essentially here to be our own boss. We are here to be our own compass. And that's really what this chart helps us see is that there is a decision making mechanic inside of each and every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about following the old way or following your family's way or your community's way. It's about following your own way
Mm-hmm.
and being extremely rooted in that. Which is why when I found this tool for the first time, I had this light bulb moment because I had spent my entire life, ever since I could remember, trying to empower women to be um, more self-resourced. I saw a lot of infighting within female communities, and I experienced through various different avenues women being extremely um, down on themselves, feeling defeated, feeling not enough. And I just had this moment during that first reading where I was like, every woman on earth needs this. Every
Yeah.
woman on earth needs to understand how incredibly resourced we actually all are. I mean, it was at a pretty low point in my own life that I
Mhm.
received this, and it was such a source of peace when it finally arrived that I hadn't messed everything up, that I was simply experiencing this big shift, this Saturn return shift, that I am here to be a leader and a role model and to bring this information forward, and that this information truly is for women
Mhm.
because this hierarchical, masculine, distorted frequency that we're, trying to leave behind needs a surgence of yin energy,
Yes.
and that's what we're really here to understand and to really embody at this time here on earth.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, yeah, I had to deal with a lot when after the divorce. I had to like really work on myself, like my own inner work, healing, I would
Mhm.
say. And I found that I had so much of the old masculine, like the toxic masculine, that's really what I like to call it, the old patriarch energy where, and I found that I had so much of that in my cellular, and I had to like pretty much rise out of that, what was my own yin, my divine feminine, and embrace that divine feminine energy. So in a way, it's kind of like starts, within us. And the more of us that do that, it also like embodies it in a collective, like the quantum field. So that's where I've been. Like I've been working a lot with the two energies, so I recognize that out of the divine feminine can also come the divine masculine. And so with those two energies, you do need as a balancing point within, and they help because divine feminine is really, are like way just flowing with the energy and surrendering when you need to rather than forcing things to be as is, you want to make it happen. You want things to like happen. And sometimes the masculine energy can be so forceful in that way and aggressive, the toxic way. But whereas the looking at it from like what's changing now into the divine feminine is really trusting. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. And we could see that, right? With everything that's just collapsing before our eyes, and change is coming in. And there's a moment to really embrace that divine feminine and flow, with where the universe is really taking us. And it takes tremendous amount of courage and trust, to get into that. But yeah, do you see that like, like now, like with the feminine energy, that's kind of how it's rising the yin now with everything that is at an all-time high, like chaotic and challenging right now on this planet. Well, this year in particular too, like most of all.
Well, yeah, I really like what you said about balancing the divine masculine and the divine feminine because that is, I mean, I'm a Libra, so balance is what I'm always looking for. And I think it's more that we as a collective are waking up to the imbalance at this time. And so that is actually the first step. The first step is acknowledging that there has been an imbalance.
Mhm.
And then that surrender that you're talking about is really what is required through self trust because we are here to be passengers in
Mhm.
this vehicle. We are here to be observers of life. And yeah, occasionally there needs to be action. There needs
Mhm.
to be um, there needs to be something that brings in the material
Yes.
from the quantum field, but there is an overwhelming amount of masculine energy in every single one of us. And
Mhm.
I too had to go through a divorce after actually that initial meeting of human design. And just taking a good hard look at myself and
Mhm.
recognizing that uh, potentially the byproduct of living in New York City was that I was in my hyper masculine all the time because that
Right.
place is so intense
Yeah, New
and
York.
and being tough and ruthless and
Yes.
driven is just the way. It's just the way. It's how I saw everybody around me. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
was talking about surrendering. Nobody was talking about leaning
Mm-hmm.
into feminine energy. And so I really believe that the the only way to surrender is through the mechanics of the design because otherwise, listen, the mind needs an explanation,
Yeah.
right? If the
Mm-hmm.
mind wasn't here, like trying to tell us what to do and what to go after and who to trust and all of these different things, then we wouldn't have such a hard time surrendering. But
Yes.
there's this map now,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's this beautiful blueprint that we can look at, and we can point to things on this blueprint and say, you can surrender to this. You can surrender to that. You can trust this because it is who you are
Yeah.
instead of just this mm, like blanket statement saying, hey, we're here to surrender. Like, okay,
Yeah, exactly.
easier said than done.
Right, right, right. Exactly. Thank you for elaborating that. But yes, so like one of my biggest problem was that I was too much analytical,
Mm,
and it's okay to be analytical, of course, but when we get too much in our head, too much in our way, we kind of block or cut off our true intuition or true
mm,
message, for inner guidance, especially if we're going to be like our own independent person and not rely on
mm,
answers from others. So really like being, like you were saying, like our own inner boss, or being our own boss, or, just pretty much being our own guru, if you think about it, because
mhm.
the way of the
Yes.
guru, the way the old ways, people follow a guru. I feel like now the new way is that we become our own guru,
Mm,
of wisdom and knowledge, and however that is expressed in each one of us. Mm.
mm. I absolutely love it when somebody's just in conversation speaking their own keynotes because um, your design is actually very much based around your intuition
Mhm.
and these very quick, very in the moment awarenesses that can come through.
Yeah.
And then there's still a lot of activations in the mind for you. So there's a lot of doubt and there's a lot of potentially repetitive kind of going over things. There's
Mhm.
rationalizing and there's conceptualizing happening.
Mhm.
And so you can get very stuck in the energies up here, whereas like your body knows. It's
Mhm.
just that the body has been not only silenced for so long, so it's hard to tune into, although I know that you are very tuned into your intuition now. So it's really about retraining yourself.
Yes.
Uh, we really say that the process of following the guidance of your design is deconditioning regardless of
Mhm.
any other practice that you're doing, just simply by following your intuition radically.
Mhm.
Like just
Mhm.
never doing anything that the mind is telling you to do because your mind is very loud. It can rationalize anything, it can
Yes.
convince you of anything, it can
Mhm.
jump through all of these mental hoops to try and get you to do what it wants you to do.
Yeah.
And really, what we say is that your mind is an outer authority,
Mhm.
meaning that you can absorb information beautifully. It's a tool for sharing, it's a tool for learning. It's also pretty great for entertainment, purposes, like what people come up with is absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the big decisions in your life, when it comes to what is rational or logical, it can't help you,
Mm-hmm.
because it is the body's life that we're
Mm-hmm.
here to live out, not the
Yes.
mind's. And I personally feel like one of the most helpful things that I have done for myself throughout this process is whenever I am feeling like really stuck in my head, whenever I am trying to um, figure something out, because there's nothing to figure out. So whenever I'm trying to figure something out, like I need to move. I need to be in nature. I
Yeah,
need to
exactly.
um, get out of breath
Mm-hmm.
in some way, which is why I love living in the mountains
Yeah.
because it's
You
very
get
easy to
you
just
get
go out
plenty
on
of
a
that.
trail.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
And then you can, like, even through movement, like the aha moments can
Mm-hmm.
come.
Mm-hmm.
The whatever information wants to come through instead of having that loop, that thought
Mm-hmm.
loop,
Yeah.
I can start to really clear things out. But I didn't have that wherewithal before. I believed everything the voices were saying, and they were extremely mean to me. You're failing, you're a loser,
Oh,
you're this, and you're that. And
yeah.
I find that there's a lot more kindness and a lot more
Yeah.
self-compassion through this understanding.
Yeah.
And the way to really check myself now is when I was feeling that way, when those voices were getting really overwhelming, and when the negative self talk was at an all time high, I would try to throw myself into work because I believed the voices. And so I was like, oh, well, if I just work harder, if I just do more, if I just put more effort in, then they will be happy, quiet down, be nicer, whatever I thought they were going to do. Never happened, right? That was not
Right.
how that worked. And so it's still a practice of trying to remember that when that's what's going on, rest. That's when you need rest. That's when you need to pour back into yourself. That's when you need to take much better care of yourself because those voices are that that toxic masculine, like trying to pull you back into, you can call it the matrix if you want, the
Yeah.
old paradigm, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And it's that action that you think that you need to take in order for things to move, but really it's about a pause that's
Mm-hmm.
necessary.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
just flipping that. Oh my gosh, what a revelation.
Yeah, I mean, I had similar, like I was very self-critical myself, like
Mm,
the mind, but I actually call it like the ego was really rough, with myself, like and where, I felt that, that criticism, but where I was feeling it the most was in my solar plexus, like, the power, that diminishing power. And it just felt
mm,
really unpleasant. Like, like I was tormenting myself. And so now, like, when I can sense, when the energy is like, I think where where you were sharing before, is like the key is, first starting with that awareness, right? And being aware that this is really happening, that this inner, critic voice that, is coming from your mind or your ego is there, without fighting it or like anything like that, but it's really a part of us also, like integrated, as part of the shadow work that we do, like with ourselves, and embracing all that we are with that. But yeah, so that's one way, to like look at it. So like important that you share, the stories that we share it, because others may be experiencing the same thing, going through their own like self-criticism, not realizing that this is just like an become so subconscious that, hasn't become so aware just yet. And so, yeah, this is where the intense awakening and the intense wake up call is also happening, with so many of us right now, that it's time to really rise, awaken the yin in us, awaken that
Mm,
divine feminine energy in us. So I would say, the first one is that awareness. What would you say would be like some other ways to like help
mm,
people and how human design can, tie into all of this?
sure. So when we're talking about the mechanics of your design, what we're talking about is aura mechanics. So the chart is a map of our auric field. Our auric field is what we call our electromagnetic field of influence. And when two auras interact, they're having a conversation that's not something that we are mentally necessarily aware of, but we can say, like, oh, I liked this person right away, or like, oh, I just felt drawn to this person immediately, you know? So there's that like mental explanation of why potentially these two auras really like being together. But the awareness that I feel is super valuable through understanding your aura mechanics is how your energy works. Because you mentioned in the beginning of the conversation that you are a projector, and projectors are about 20% of the population. But the majority of us are what is called a generator aura type. So about 70% of us are these energy types that are here to release energy in a
Mhm.
satisfying way,
I didn't even know
but
this number.
where,
That's interesting.
sorry?
I didn't even know these numbers. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah. So basically, generators and projectors make up the majority. We're
Mm-hmm.
90% of the population. And what we're really here to see is that the world would be a much smoother, more aligned place if we understood our roles, if we
Hmm.
understood how these two aura types flow and cooperate and intermingle with one another.
Hmm.
Because if if you get my free masterclass after listening
Yes.
to this, you'll start to understand a little bit better how these all four aura types interconnect. But essentially, we're all trying to take each other's roles. We're all trying to be something that we're not. And
Gotcha.
that's what creates all this resistance for us.
Mhm.
That's what creates all of these things that seem to make life really hard. Whereas if you lean into your particular strategy as an aura like recommendation that comes through human design, you'll see that actually you can stop paddling up against the current and just flow along with it, which, like you just said, is how we lean into our feminine instead of trying to like bulldoze forward and just be these like wrecking balls. Like that's what I look back at who I used to be and I was like, I was just a menace, like, punching my way through things and just everything had to be so hard because I thought that life was supposed to be hard. I thought that life was supposed to be resistance after resistance after resistance. And I was exhausted. I was so burnt out. I
Mhm.
was so done with that. And I think that that's why human design found me at the perfect time because even a few years prior to that, I would have been like, psh,
Mhm.
no, 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 no. I'm going to do it the hard way still,
Yeah.
and I was so ready for something easier. I was
Yeah.
so ready to lean into, waiting for a life to come to me instead of trying to go, go, go and get it and chase it and make it happen and all
Yeah.
of these different things that we're trained to do. And the manifestor aura type is really much more designed for that, but they're only 9% of the population. So,
Okay.
and there's a dilemma that comes with every single one of these aura types. So it's
Mhm.
not like, oh, there's this like exalted aura type and all of us are just left in the dust. No, there's this like beautiful way for all of us to build and create and cooperate, like I said. But again, our roles have been so distorted and we're trying to be someone we're not that it just creates chaos,
Mhm.
confusion, chaos, lots of frustration, lots of anger, um, bitterness, and disappointment. These are the keynotes of our,
Mhm.
collective dilemmas. And we're not here to try and be someone we're not. That's the first step in understanding your chart, actually. I make very clear the distinction because there's areas of the chart that are colored in or defined, and there's areas that are white or open. And where we are colored in is who we are. It's where the definition is a consistent energy within us. But all of those open places where we're filtering the outside world, we're experiencing as ourselves and we're trying to live out of those areas instead of our true definition, which we take for granted almost. So it's a real like perspective shift that you can get. Most of the people who come to me for readings don't even really know why they're there. When I see their charts for the first time, I'm always like, oh, I think I can guess why we're having this conversation, either because they're in one of their own cycle shifts, like our Saturn return is something that we're very aware of as a consciousness, but there's also the Uranus opposition around our midlife, so mid 40s, then the Chiron return, which is around 50 years old. So these cycle shifts create a lot of reevaluation for us.
Okay.
It
Yes.
creates a lot of um, like in a feeling potentially of instability because you're
Mhm.
shifting out of the old, you're letting go of the old, and you're making room for the new. And understanding your chart is a beautiful way to just affirm that you are on the right path, that you didn't mess anything up, that there's no such thing as a wrong decision. It's just seeing where you can align more to your true self instead of letting the mind take you for a ride in all of these different directions. And that is just such a comfort. Like I watch people's shoulders kind of relax. I watch them. Sometimes they start yawning because the information is so like powerful and deep that they start to like relax so much that they're almost like in a dream state as
Yeah.
they're taking this information in. And that's another reason why I always like to record people's readings because I encourage you to listen to it as many
Yeah.
times as you can manage. And it's it's just this like permission slip that people
Mhm.
feel like they get because I'm not necessarily telling you anything new about yourself. I'm telling you that you get to be this person. And if somebody had along the lines told you that that was wrong or bad, then so be it. But it actually isn't because there's nothing in the chart that's bad. It's a
Yeah.
completely neutral
Mhm.
experience. And the context also of your of these different cycle shifts can also help people to feel more at ease because they understand, like, oh, I'm just going through this shift in
Mhm.
my own process, and I don't have to make that a problem. I
Mhm.
can just see it for what it is and welcome the new chapter that I'm
Mhm.
about to step into or am already in but didn't know it.
Oh, cool. So in a way, we could say the human design really helps us tap into our divine feminine energy that way, knowing that we can accept who we are based on the reading, that we're receiving, rather than before, like, the old way was really meeting the societal norms, because that's the way the old patriarch system was, societal norms to follow this way, this rigid way. And they're saying that no, because I really feel like in my soul and in my being, there's something in me that just doesn't want it almost wants to rebel, like, but
Yes.
it's really like just the divine feminine energy that is just rising out of that, and human design helps us to really build that awareness of ourselves and knowing ourselves better. Would that be the right way to like describe it?
Yeah, I feel like, again, because there's so much input coming at us, and I think that for women especially, that input can be really confusing. The mixed messages
Mhm.
of who we are supposed to be feminine, but not
Yeah.
too, like,
Well, that too.
you can never win. There's like no perfectly correct way to be a
Yeah.
woman.
Yes.
So the irony actually is that there is a lot of masculine energy in my chart. And so it's almost like I had to come full circle with that because, I am very femme presenting. I chose a career in fashion. I love makeup. I love like decorating myself. I love, fragrances and all of these like opulent things in my field. But I also have a very powerful leadership energy inside of me. And it's like I almost had to overcorrect before I could come back to embodying that fully because initially it was in such a distorted frequency that it wasn't getting anything done. It wasn't being the proper leader that I wanted to be or knew I could be. But because there was no balance, um, I couldn't even see what was needed
Yeah.
or how to move forward in that. So again, I had to correct before I could come full circle. And that's why, we say healing is not a linear process. Deconditioning is not a linear process. You got to maybe overcorrect a little bit and get a little bit out of your own way to be able to see like, oh, actually, like doing absolutely nothing is not is not where it's at for me. There are areas where I do need to take action and I do need to lead and I do need to step up
Yeah.
in a more masculine way. And denying that part of myself was also not serving me or anything or anyone around me. So there's so many nuances for each and every person. Like no two people's deconditioning journey is the same because it's the chart with lots and lots of layers of experiences. And what you're really trying to do is strip away all of that input and
Hmm.
all of those experiences to say, you know, is that how I want to continue living my life? Is
Hmm.
that true? Is that serving me? Or can I let it go now? can I
Yeah.
put it down?
Hmm.
And it's not like the input's going to stop. Everyone's
Yeah.
going to have an opinion, everyone's going to have input, everybody's going to try and influence you because for some reason that's what we try to do here on planet Earth.
Yeah, and like you said earlier too, it's also about the perception, right? And we have like our own perception, so with that comes our own belief systems and our own opinions. So we're always being bombarded by different kind of inputs. Um,
Hmm.
but seeing all that, the key is how we receive it also and what we do with it or not. We don't have to like accept all the inputs. And I think, the way that for most women also like we become like the most critical, we have a tendency to want to take all the inputs.
Hmm.
And so just be free and know that you don't have to.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes.
And actually, that's really what the old system is counting on. It's
Hmm.
the tool and the method for the old paradigm to keep us in the same loops
Hmm.
instead of breaking out of the pattern and
Hmm.
being our own authority. So, it's an act of rebellion and it's an
Hmm.
act of, I don't know, like freedom. It's a
I like
way to
rebellion.
reclaim our freedom.
I like rebellion. So that's kind of what it feels like this year to me. It's like kind of like this rebellious energy. Also at the same time that all this other stuff is happening.
I'm obsessed with this because you're speaking your keynote again. Revolution.
It is though. What
It's
season
so
two
good.
is spiritual revolution? Like
Mm.
so it's interesting though, like human design, because you were saying that the generator are 70%, right?
Hmm.
And the projectors are 20%, and then the
Hmm.
what was the other one? The manifestors like two. Was it 2%?
Nine
Oh,
percent
9%. So what was the last one then? Like percentage wise, like it's probably like the smaller one.
So reflectors are the rarest of
Hmm.
the human design types. And as their aura title would suggest, they are here to reflect back to us, not just ourselves as individuals, but the communities that they reside in or the collective that they are experiencing,
Hmm.
because we all need like a barometer for where we're at. So there's kind of this joke in human design that if you're throwing a party, you should invite one reflector. And if the reflector is having a really good time and socializing and dancing, then your party is a success. And if the reflector's like moping in the corner or getting sloppy drunk, then, there's some work to do.
That's funny. I would definitely want to go to
And
a party.
I've been to a party with multiple reflectors at it
Oh.
because when we commune in human design communities, there's always quite a few of them, and it's it's always interesting to see what they see.
Mhm.
Um, they're always looking to see who is in alignment, who is being their true authentic selves, because they can sense that. They have the ability to
Yeah.
sense who's really living out their true nature and who's faking it, essentially.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've heard reflectors say that, you know, their family of origin is has a tendency to be a very challenging thing because every family has things that they don't want talked about. Every family has skeletons in their closet, especially in the old paradigm. And as children, reflectors are like saying the truth and telling it like it is, and people don't like that. They are not necessarily attached to that truth, meaning it's very neutral for them. They're just saying it, not because they have an opinion about it. They're just reflecting back to us what's going on.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
feeling like that is unwelcome or even something that they get punished for can be extremely painful.
Hmm.
And so, if a reflector is like maybe has left their family of origin earlier than is traditionally accepted, or is
Hmm.
no longer in touch with that family, that's potentially why that is, because we we have a very strange we have a very strange relationship with truth.
Yes, true.
A lot of us have the tendency to try to avoid it at all costs.
Hmm.
But the truth will set you free. That's not that's not trite. It's the truth. The
Hmm.
truth can only um, can only create more expansion. It's not a contraction. But what's also true is that we all have our own truth. There's 8 billion truths on planet Earth. There's yours, there's mine. It's how I see it, it's how you see it. And trying to get you to see it my way is
Yeah,
it's comical
yeah,
if you really think about it.
yeah. It's really interesting. The four areas of the human design. And would you say though that's in all of us, but just bits and pieces of all like intertwined somehow? Um, Whereas, others have more than, this category than the other or something like that. I think I heard that somewhere, but I wanted to get your perception from that.
Well, so there are also circuit groups that we look at in the body graph, as I mentioned. But there's also like the types also have an association with each of the channels or the lines that connect these energy centers. So, yes, we do all carry different aspects of these energies within our own design. And like I said, reflectors are this 1%, this extremely rare type, which have the opportunity to experience what it's like to be each of the types. Because, like I said, they're a reflection. So they have insight into what it's like being a generator or a projector or a manifester based on who they're with.
Hmm.
And before understanding this about themselves, reflectors have a tendency to feel a little nuts because they feel different based on who they're with,
Hmm.
and they might act differently based on who they're with. So there's this fear that they're just copying others, whereas it's really just a reflection of the people that they surround themselves with. And there also tends to be uh, a, a desire to have lots of different types of friend groups, being plugged into different categories of types of people, just so that they can experience such a variety of interests and um, experiences. So it's it's a very unique experience for them. But yes, we all have these different energies throughout our design that's maybe a way for us to understand each other better. Although I wouldn't say that that's something that most of us tap into. It's more about trying to make sense of all of the nuances and even potential um, like contradictions within your own design, right? Like, because we are an amalgamation of all of these different things, where these things are not separate from us. These aspects of ourselves are all working in tandem
Mm-hmm.
together. And there might be a contradiction in there, which creates confusion for us. And we're here to really see how those two energies interact without judging it, without trying to say one is better or one is
Mm-hmm.
worse.
Yeah.
There's there's always these like funny things that you start to learn about when you dig into the deeper layers and you're like, oh yeah, that does not seem like it would go with that
Yeah.
within somebody's design, but it's there. So there's nothing wrong or bad about it. Just see
Mhm.
how it plays out.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. So this is really great information on human design, the divine feminine energy. So I say that I feel like, this time to be wrapping up. So we'll just, first of all, I just want to tell the listeners, thank you for listening to this message. And that if you want to connect with Zsuzsi Evans, which I highly recommend, or you can find all her contact information in the episode notes. And she also has two free gifts. There is a free chart that you can pull up for yourself and figure out what your human design is. You may possibly be the reflector, like the rare kind, or some of the other categories. And sign up for her free introduction to human design masterclass. She's definitely a pro at this and an expert. All this
Hmm.
information, a lot of wisdom with it. So how about some final thoughts? Do you have any?
Yeah, we each came here to live out our own uniqueness. Because of the nature of this podcast, I just want to say, we all came from different dimensions, off planet, have a lot of energies from different places that are coursing through us. And if you look at your design, there is definitely a thread. Your soul has always been this. And as humans, we're just here to try and like tap into a little part of that so that we can feel that we are living authentically. That is a core need of human beings, is to be authentic and to be able to connect to others. And only through living authentically can we truly do that. So this is such a beautiful way to reconnect to your soul's essence
Yeah.
that I really encourage everybody to at least start the exploration process. That's why I created these free gifts. Even just looking at your chart can be super powerful. Hearing some of these keynotes about yourself can be incredibly freeing. And I invite you to come and do a reading with me if that is something that your body feels called to do, because it is seriously such a gift.
Yeah, it truly is. And I love how you were emphasizing the keynotes that I was saying. So it made me like
Mm.
aware of, the words that I was using as a projector.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Hmm.
so I'm probably still speaking a lot of keynotes right now, you know. So
We always are. It's beautiful.
yeah, so thank you so much for being a guest and for being here in this episode and being with us and the listeners. It's a lot of great information on human design. It's a very powerful tool, I would say, for us to like really become more aware of ourselves and what our role is here, in this new earth. We're in this new earth field right now. It's a very powerful time to really step into our authenticity. Yes, I'll use my projector's keynote. It is a spiritual revolution going on. So, so tap in, to this information and check out, everything is in the episode notes for ways to connect and claim your free gift. So I will be with, connect with you all in another episode. So see you all in the next quantum field also. Take care.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
having me.
Thank